Good afternoon, fourth grade. We are going to continue studying ancient Egypt, and today we're going to be focusing on funeral rites and how important it was for the ancient Egyptians to prepare the bodies of the deceased. Before we get started, we have a quick rite. It says, based on what you learned yesterday, what did you learn about the importance of the Nile River in ancient Egypt? Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the focus question. It says, based on the author's description of the Egyptian funeral rites and her explanation of why these rites were developed, what can you infer ancient Egyptian culture valued most? What was most important? And today we're going to be practicing finding the main idea and using key details to support that main idea. Our vocabulary words are right, and that's not the opposite of wrong when it's spelled R-I-T-E. A rite is a religious ceremony. And so you draw a line to this picture. A priest is distributing communion, and that's an ancient ceremony in Christian cultures. Number 2 is deceased, and that describes a person who died, so you'll draw a line to this picture. And the last word is afterlife, and that describes the period after someone dies. Some religions believe that there is a life after death, and the ancient Egyptians are one of those groups of people. All right, go ahead and turn the page, and we're going to read the first page of your article, Funeral Rites, and in parallel teaching, we're going to dig in a little deeper into the rest of the article. All right, we do have a how or why question and already on our notes, and you can go ahead and write that on your notes now. Why were funeral rites developed in ancient Egypt? That's something we're going to be focusing on in parallel teaching. This time we want to make sure we can go back in the text and find the answers to the questions. Okay, so I'm going to begin reading the first page, and then we're going to come back and do the questions. It says, human beings had a body which cast a shadow and was named at birth. But ancient Egyptians believed that at birth, the Ka came into existence too. The Ka was a replica of the body, but without physical form. Humans also had a Ba. The Ba encompassed the personal power of an individual, almost like a personality, spiritual in nature. The name of a person was important in life. Witness how Aset gained Ra's power by learning his secret name. And after death, the living needed to remember a deceased person's name for that person to prosper in the afterlife. So names were inscribed outside tombs. Inside tombs, names were on coffins. Inside coffins, names were on personal items. Often statues or carvings or paintings of a person would be at the tomb with the name displayed. At death, the Ka and Ba separated from the body, but they needed to be reunited with it quickly because it was their physical abode. The Ka, being the body's double, also needed to be fed. People put food in tombs for the Ka to eat, and in this way to nourish the corpse, the Ka's home. The Ba shared the home, but it was free to move around unrestricted, as a different mode for the individual to continue existing. It empowered the dead to leave the tomb and travel in a spiritual sense, so long as they returned to the body each night. All right, so our author is describing what ancient Egyptians believed happened to a person after they died. And they did certain things that we don't do in our culture because of what they believe. So, number 1 says, according to the author, what is the difference between the ba and the ka? And I can go back into the first paragraph to find my answer. It says the ka was a replica of the body, but without physical form. So the ka looked exactly like the body, but it wasn't a body. And then it says humans also had a ba. The ba encompassed the personal power of an individual, like a personality. So the ba was your personality that you can't really see or touch. And the ka looked like the body, but you couldn't touch it either because it wasn't physical. Okay? And so in box 1, we would write, neither the ba or the ka are physical. The ba is a human's personality. The ka is a replica of a person's body, but it's not an actual body. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for box 2. It says, why did the Egyptians think a person's name was important? And if we go to the second paragraph, it talks about how the name of a person was important during their life and after their life. And that's because the living needed to remember a deceased person's name for that person to prosper in the afterlife. So if people did not remember their name, the person would not have a good life after death. And so in box 2A, we would write this quote from the text. The living needed to remember a deceased person's name for that person to prosper in the afterlife. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for 2B. It says, how did the ancient Egyptians demonstrate that they thought a person's name was important? And so we know why they thought the name was important, but we want to know, what did they do to show other people that the name was important? And if we go back into that second paragraph, it tells us that they wrote names everywhere, outside the tomb, inside the tomb, on the coffins, inside the coffins, on all the personal items. They also left carvings and paintings in the tomb with the person's name on it. So in 2B, we would write, ancient Egyptians showed that they thought a deceased person's name was important by writing the deceased person's name outside tombs, outside coffins, and on the deceased person's personal items. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for box 3. It says, why did the Egyptians put food inside the tombs of the deceased? We go down to the third paragraph. It talks about how people put food in tombs for the ka to eat, and in this way to nourish the corpse, the ka's home. So because they believed in the ka and the ba, they felt like they still needed to feed the ka and the ba for the person to prosper in the afterlife. So in box 3, we would write that quote from the text. People put food in tombs for the ka to eat, and in this way to nourish the corpse, the ka's home. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for number 4. It says, what were 2 effects of dying that the Egyptians believed in? And if we go back to the third paragraph, we want to know, what did they think happened when a person died? And in this first sentence in the last paragraph, it says, at death, the ka and ba separated from the body, but they needed to be reunited with it quickly because it was their physical abode. Press pause to write down that sentence in the first part of box 4, and play when you're ready for the next effect. If we keep reading, it also says the ba shared the home with the ka, but it was free to move around unrestricted. Okay, so the ba could actually leave the tomb and come back each night. The ka could not do that, but the ba could. So in the second part of box 4, we would write, the ba could leave the tomb and travel as long as it returned to the body each night. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the paragraph. The paragraph states, how did Egyptians respond to death? And you can use evidence from box 2 and box 3 to help you write your paragraph.